So, some educators swear by test scores, others shun them. Should there be some middle ground? I'm joined here in Washington by Jessica Hiltabidel. She's a former teacher. She now serves as director of the Inspired Teacher Certification Program, which trains the teachers. So your take on teaching, or testing, I should say, because you've been there in the trenches and now you're training the teachers, is it a necessary evil?
It absolutely is, but in order to really truly understand it, you have to change your perspective on what you think about when you hear the word testing. The easiest analogy I can give is when you think about the word discipline. A lot of people think about timeouts or punishments or things like that, particularly for parents. But then if you think about discipline in the context of the arts, a disciplined artist or a disciplined athlete and the dedication they have, that's what we need to do when we think about testing and change our perspective on that. So it's not just a paper and pencil test, it's a wide range of authentic assessments that we really need to use to assess the learning of our students.
You find in China and other places as well, there's some pushback from parents. They're upset, it's too stressful, or the kids go crazy. It's very, very difficult. Is there another way to measure student achievement without so much emphasis on tests and test scores?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Center for Inspired Teaching, one of our 5 core elements is wide-ranging evidence of student learning. So one component of that is certainly formative assessments or summative assessments, which are, again, the traditional paper and pencil assessments. But there's also room for performance. There's also room for pictorial models. There's room for real-world examples. And one of my favorite examples is when I was teaching, I had a unit on equations, and the way that my students were assessed was by designing a trip that they would go on with their family and figuring out how much they would have to pay for plane tickets or for entrance fees and things like that. And so you put it into the real world context, and then it's no longer a test. Then it's something fun that they're doing that's engaging. And that's really what you need to do, is make the assessment as engaging as the instruction that you're providing them.
You've spent time in the classroom. I was an adjunct professor. It's interesting though, and I want to get your thoughts on this. It seemed to me there were some students that were really good at tests and perhaps not that great at grasping concepts and going away with knowledge, which is really what education's all about. Is there that disparity, and is there a different way of connecting with the students, one versus the other?
Yeah, there certainly can be, and you see it not just in math, but also in reading as well. There are students who memorize books, and when they read them, they sound like fluent readers, but the second you ask them a question, they have no idea what the book is about. Same thing with math. I'm certain we all remember how to multiply fractions, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, but when you start to get into the question of, but you've always been told that multiplication makes the answer get larger, and yet when you multiply fractions, it's smaller. That is sort of mind-blowing to a student, and you need to make sure that you're able to have those discussions and those conversations with folks and not train, folks to be good memorizers, which is actually what a good test taker could be. Mm-hmm. And our assessments really need to catch up with the instruction that's happening in the classroom. They're still based upon the old compliance-based method, and at Inspired Teaching, we are really pushing for an engagement-based method for teaching and for the assessment process as well.
In Hong Kong's story, it's the West looking East. Are there differences in cultures and different ways of approaching them?
There are differences in cultures, but again, it sort of comes down to the emphasis placed on education, excuse me. So when we think about the first group that started to be brought over was Singapore math. And that's actually a term that's been coined by the United States, Singapore math. But really it's because the Eastern Asian and Southeast Asian countries, they refer to their teachers as nation builders. And when we think about that here in the United States, that's a method that we have to really embrace, and we have to make sure that we are treating our teachers like the professionals that they are. And once we start doing that and making the teacher an expert in the classroom, they are able to then transform that into making their students experts in the classroom. So it takes, again, a shift in mindset that has to happen in order to engage the students and engage the teachers, and then engage the parents and the community. This can't just be one teacher standing in front of one group of students year after year after year. It's a community.
Well, you're the builder of the nation builder, so hopefully you're getting compensated as well as you should be. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us.
My pleasure.